we talked about the blocks, which ones are the blocks, right? It's not the independent countries are part of that. Right now they're independent, but they used to be part of Soviet Union. But these are the independent countries of Eastern Europe. So I just want to show you guys a map before and after. Chapter 9 covers Poland, Czech Republic, and Hungary. This is before. You see here East Germany. East Germany here, West Germany here, Poland, which we're going to talk about it. We talk about Poland, Czech Republic, and Hungary, right? So, which used to be called Czechoslovakia, right? Here, it used to be called Czechoslovakia. We don't have Czechoslovakia right now because it's either Czech or Slovakia, right? So there are two countries, right? And there were two ethnic groups, Czechs and Slovaks. And when they combined and merged them together, that's how the problem started. That's why as soon as they had the opportunity to split up, they split it up because there were two very different ethnic groups. So the countries that split up, one is Czechoslovakia, and you guys remember Yugoslavia. I don't know if you guys know what's going on. But Yugoslavia, here, it doesn't exist anymore either. Yugoslavia has been divided by, I think, 7 countries. Now, you see this one here. This is a new map. Remember Germany, Czech, and Slovakia, which was one country, Czechoslovakia, right? Right now it's Czech Republic and Slovakia. Czech Republic is Prague and Slovakia is Bratislava, their capital. Bratislava and Prague. One of the most beautiful countries. Now, also remember Yugoslavia started with here, right? Right next to Italy. Here, all the way to here, right? This was all Yugoslavia, north of Albania. Right now, Yugoslavia is Slovenia, Croatia, Bosnia-Herzegovina, Serbia, and Macedonia. So right now, you see all of these countries split up to different countries. Now, I told you guys that your first lady is from Slovenia, right?
Yep.
So this is basically the split up, the new map versus the former map. Now, here in this chapter, we'll focus on Poland, this one here, Czechoslovakia or Czech Republic, and Hungary. So these 3, which used to be part of former Soviet bloc. Well, how it started, they have been basically battleground for a very long time because it used to, the whole area, the entire area, it used to be Austro-Hungarian. Austro-Hungarian, it was not even Austria. Okay, let me show you another map which was before World War I. After World War I, here, if I can show this. Okay, so starting by, you see it includes all of them. Czech, Slovakia, Austria, Hungary, part of former Yugoslavia, part of Romania, entire Romania, all were Austro-Hungarian Empire. This actually was at the time of, remember we studied in one of the chapters, in the beginning of 1900, there were only 76, I guess it says, countries around the world, right? Right now we have 196. Why? Because the entire 1900 was before World War I. So the entire area was only one country, Austro-Hungarian. And then after World War I, the treaty that ended World War I was Treaty of Versailles, which is Versailles Palace in France when you guys go. So The Treaty of Versailles ended World War I, which that one was basically responsible for dividing Austro-Hungary into so many different countries that we'll see here. This is basically how it ended up being. Which now, this is also being divided to this one, right? So you see how many more countries out of one country we have right now? I don't know, about 20 countries out of one country? Or even more. So, here. All belong to Soviet bloc and linked in every way to Soviet Union. Now, we're going to talk in chapter, but they're very similar to what we already covered. As far as, remember, banking system, state-owned enterprises, and international trade or foreign trade, right? We already talked about it in Russian Federation. That's why I'm going to go very quick over that. All of these three countries, they followed exactly the same path. We talked about foreign trade was only basically with their own blocks, right? We said Soviet Union countries, which there are right now 15 countries, and Eastern Bloc. They only did foreign trade among themselves, and we even talked about it. It was mostly barter, right? Giving agriculture, give in return like steel or iron, something like that. So mostly in the form of barter. Banking, there is no private banking at all. It's only government banking and government from central government. Everything is controlled. So it applies to all of these. They all actually started following one by one. They started following Soviet Union policies as well. Among those three, Czech Republic or Czechoslovakia was the most faithful to communism. And Hungary was actually the least. They wanted to experiment new stuff. They kept their minimum relationship with the Western world. So Hungary, people could actually go in and out of Hungary. You could go to Hungary to study, but other countries, they were basically, you couldn't go there because their currency wasn't converted. There was no visa status basically to go to those countries, but Hungary you could. So out of those three, Czech Republic, Czechoslovakia was the most faithful, and Hungary was the most experimental. We talked about finance and state-owned. Finally, everything was just like following Soviet Union. All enterprises were state-owned. But they kept, unlike Soviet Union, they kept partly, especially Poland and Hungary, they did keep a very small group of agriculture privatized for the local people. So the Council of Mutual Economic Assistance was the one that they had only trade with themselves, which is Soviet Union and Eastern Bloc. Everything was basically dictated from Moscow. Czechoslovakia was faithful. We already talked about that. Czechoslovakia was created in 1918 for combining two ethnic groups. 1918, 1919 was actually when World War I ended. Hungary lost 2/3 of its territory and finally became an independent country in 1919. Poland was created from a territory claimed by many European countries. Now let's see the legacy of communism. The revolution of 1989, which started from the Eastern Bloc and already went, because people, the reason we talked about it in the Soviet Union, why finally Soviet Union collapsed? Because of unsatisfactory lifestyles, right? So shortage of food, long lines, everything must be dictated, fear of democracy, fear of everything, basically free speech. So all of that put people on pressure, and they started little by little, riots started. Riot for food, riot for bread, little by little, and then finally the whole country. It also started the same thing in 1989 from Eastern Bloc. The first one was Berlin Wall, and then it went all the way towards the east. Berlin Wall was the most western part of the communism. So it went towards the east and finally to the Soviet Union. All Central and Eastern European countries started 1989 and 1990s. Early 1990s, one by one, they started becoming independent and moving towards transformation. The events full-blown revolution began in 1989 in Poland, continued in Hungary, East Germany, Bulgaria, Czechoslovakia, Romania. Romania was the only Eastern Bloc whose citizens overthrew its communist regime violently. The rest of them was basically peacefully. And it's called, it's called, I think, Velvet Revolution. Protests in Tiananmen Square in 1989. Have you guys heard that one? The very, very famous video or picture you always see in a huge freeway kind of thing. There is a man standing in front of a tank. Have you guys seen that?
Yeah,
very, very famous picture.
I have.
But that picture is actually Tiananmen Square in 1989, which was the communism, which they wanted to overthrow communism in China. And the square is actually in Beijing, a very big square, which all the students gathered together against the government, and government sent its troops. And that picture was taken when the tank was coming to run over the gentleman that you see in the picture. In November 9, 1989, East Germany's Communist Party announced a change in the city relations with the West because of the Berlin Wall, and then wall fell in June 13, 1990. And we talked about Mikhail Gorbachev, that he was responsible basically for all these. He gave more freedom, right? So that's why people could take advantage of it, and finally the Communist Party was overthrown. Now, one by one, Poland. Communism did not have the hold in Poland as it did in other Soviet bloc countries. There was a resentment from any other power, particularly Germany and Soviet Union, because of their history. Because many times Germany took over Poland area, and then they became a battleground, and the Soviet did and became a battleground. That's why they had a resentment. Poland had no traditional communism before World War II. The Catholic Church has always been a vital part of life of Poland. Poles were able to travel to other countries, and were well aware of life standards in other countries. So when you are more aware, you have more resentment to your lifestyle. Problems of the Polish economy. Even though farming was private, the most part government did not offer subsidies, inefficient agriculture, slaughtering houses were run inefficiently, distribution system was highly inefficient. We talked about all of these in Soviet Union, right? And you will see all of them follow exactly the same thing for Poland, Czech Republic, and Hungary. Shock therapy, you guys remember the shock therapy that we talked about?
Yeah.
So shock therapy was the country of former Soviet bloc to implement, it was the first one, to implement shock therapy to transform from communism to capitalism. I'm not going to go all over this because we already did. It's just posted online. You can read it, because exactly we talked about all of these privatization, how they privatized it. They gave vouchers. Some of them they gave it to managers, right? We talked about all of those. The only thing that's different is a little bit of the voucher amount, which was $25 for Russia, for Soviet Union, and then for this one's is actually about $50, so it was a little bit higher. But it's literally, all of them are exactly the same. If I find anything that was very different, I'll let you guys know, but I want to go to areas that I found like recently, which is not exactly following the communism. The rest of them are exactly the same. Just a couple of things. Their culture, their economic status, they're all democratic nations. So it's by voting, all of them, and multiple parties. They all have presidents, it's parliamentary. Their economy, I'm going to talk about economy as well as Hungary is an OECD high income mixed economy. It's a very high human development index, 45 out of 189. A skilled labor force, one of the lowest income inequality in the world of 30. Hungary is the 14th most complex economy according to Economic Complexity Index. The Hungarian economy is the 57th largest economy in the world, GDP of 139.1 billion. They have, Hungary and Poland, they have actually improved a lot. In comparison, this is Hofstad's comparison. I put only United States here so you guys can see where United States is, because I couldn't include 5 of them here. So Czech Republic, Hungary. The reason I put Slovakia is because Czechoslovakia was one country, so I wanted you to see the difference that they merged together, Hungary and Poland. When it comes to, let's look here, power distance, you see that Czech Republic or Poland is actually highest in power distance. But I want to show to you guys how people are different. In Czech and Slovakia, which they merged them together, which was always resentment between those two ethnic groups, you see the difference between how different they were, right? Huge differences between them. But still, like here, 157. So the countries, the ethnic groups were very, very different, and that's why they could not, they didn't want to actually. They have resentment to survive together. Now, compared to United States, you see their power distance is high in Poland. United States, of course, individualism, but they're less individualistic. When you look at Czech Republic, there is almost everything is about average for Czech Republic, almost the same average. And uncertainty avoidance, Poland wants to avoid definitely for sure. And long-term orientation, Czech Republics they want to more relationship, have more relationship. But none of them are like United States or Hungary a little bit. Other than that, they have their own culture. Eastern Europe has its own culture. Not like much Western Europe and not like United States. You can say somewhat like Southern Europe as far as their culture, warm culture that they have. Now I want to actually go to the CIA website, and I want to show you guys those videos as well. Just to look at their economic growth. Okay, so let's go to GDP, and you'll see here, Czech Republic, 50 in the world. Now, let's look into comparison of Poland, and which is 24, and Hungary, 60. So Poland, you see how Poland has improved, right? So it's first is Poland, and then it's Czech Republic, and then it's Hungary. Now, as far as their per capita, if you look into per capita growth, again, Czech Republic, 35,000, it's actually very good. It's very good, 35,000 for each per capita. And looking to Hungary, 29,000 is still very good, and Poland is just right here, 29,000. So they're all doing pretty good. Russia is actually below Africa. Also, for example, unemployment. When they opened up the Eurozone and they could join them, especially Poland and Hungary, when they joined them, it really benefited them because they put a lot of call centers for Europe, like how we do it in India or in China. They took a lot of their manufacturing facilities, a lot of their call centers to Eastern Europe countries, especially Poland and Hungary. And it was because they would accept lower wages, not below minimum, but at least lower than Germany, France, and UK, right? So that helped them a lot. Just like it was a big help for India and China, so it helped them a lot to improve. Their unemployment rate is actually very low, 2.8. It's pretty good. 2.8 is very good to have that unemployment rate. And then Hungary has 4.40. Look, United Kingdom is almost exactly the same as Hungary too, right? And Poland, 4.8. So they're all doing pretty good, especially Czechia was way lower, the unemployment rate. And it's because European Union really helped them. Joining European Union, establish a good labor force. Now, let me share with you guys this videos. I honestly thought that videos would help more than going through the PowerPoint.
Let's just move on to the video today. Today we're going to talk about something that if you've been living abroad, you must have realized that there are something. And before we start with today's project, I would like to thank you guys because by the time that this video comes out, we will have reached 30,000 views on the channel. Thank you so much, guys. Please make sure to like this video, make sure to subscribe, as you know how YouTube works, the algorithm is all about numbers. So let's just move on to the video today. Today